Okay, so we're going to try it this way without my camera. We start with conjectures today. So conjectures is when we give you a situation and you're going to come up with a conclusion, or you're going to state whether something's true, false, if it can be true, can be false, is the conclusion logical. So unit 2, it's on logic and a lot of writing. So that's where geometry is going to be. It's like the easy one. Okay. So suppose on his way to school, the car stopped. Okay, what's some things that could happen? Well, what happened to the car? Did it run out of gas? Did my battery become disconnected? Did he or she stop for the train? Or had they picked up a friend? So when we give a situation, you're going to give an example of what could happen. That's a conjecture, because you're going based on the information they're giving you. So those are some things that we'll be working on tomorrow. Today we started something with statements and the converse. So our statements are always going to have a hypothesis and a conclusion, and we usually have them written as if and then. They can be true, they can be false. We use the words all, some, or none at times, and when we see all, some, or none, we want to start thinking of an example of what's true, or a counterexample, meaning I'm giving you an example of something that is not. So all or none, you need to think counterexample. Very seldom do all and none have a true statement where we have examples of the statement. So today we used all animal cells have a cell membrane, or all animal cells have a nuclei, have nuclei. So those are true statements. We can't think of an animal that doesn't have a cell wall, or an animal that doesn't have a nucleus in its cell. So with some, you're going to always have an example. Some teachers like English. Some teachers teach English. Some students like pizza. Some students do not like pizza. So you would just give an example. Okay, Miss Kramer can't eat pizza, right? I like pizza, but I have to have gluten-free crust, and I can't have pepperoni, right? Can't have the spices. And then sometimes all or none can have an example, like I said earlier with the animal cells. We know all animal cells have nuclei and cell membranes. A cell wall is for a plant. So anything in the plant kingdom is going to have a cell wall. All right. Also, all penguins live in the southern hemisphere. That is a true statement. If you told me that polar bears live in the southern hemisphere, that would be a false statement. Unless you can find one that lives in a zoo. All right, so some statements. All fish have gills, true or false? Can you find an example of a fish that does not have gills? Okay. So is there a fish that doesn't have one? All planets orbit the sun, true or false? So think about it. Do all the planets in our solar system orbit the sun? Okay. Are there any that do not? So true or false? All football players are 6 foot or taller, true or false? Okay. If it's a false statement, you're going to give me an example of a football player who is under 6 foot. Okay. No animals live in Antarctica, true or false? Okay. And then no one lives past 100, true or false. So you would want to come up with an example that proves a statement false. That's called a counterexample. So you're given a situation where that statement is not true. And we'll be working on this tomorrow as well. Okay, some students like pizza. True statement or false? Some teachers do not teach English. Some angles are right angles. Okay, and get into some vocabulary with this unit. All linear pairs are supplementary, and all complementary angles sum to 90 degrees. So every single one of these we can come up with an example to show that they're true statements. We'll be discussing the linear pairs and complementary angles later in the week. Okay. Our if-then statements and converses. So if coach is happy, then we get to have a fun practice. Well, I'm not sure which one, if it's Coach Rankin or Coach Gainey. Okay. Hypothesis is what comes after the if, and a conclusion will always follow the then. So hypothesis, coach is happy, then we get to have a fun practice, right? If that is your statement, your converse is when we switch the two up. So I'm going to take my conclusion and it will now become my hypothesis. And then what was my hypothesis becomes the conclusion. So we're just picking one up and the other, and then we're going to transpose them, or we're going to have them switch places. So when I write my converse, it's going to say, if we get to have a fun practice, then the coach is happy. So we identify which one's which. That's our statement. For the converse, we're going to switch them. And that's it with statement and converse. The inverses and contrapositive. So inverse and contrapositive, here's everything that we need to know about them. First thing, we're going to negate the hypothesis and conclusions. So that means negate is to add the negation or a negative. So we're going to add an adverb to it. So we start with, if coach is happy, then we get to have a fun practice. Well, we don't want coach to be happy, therefore we're not going to have a fun practice. That's our inverse. So we're going to drop in not, and sometimes we have to add a helping verb. Oh, and it just went backwards. Let me go back. Right. Okay. So now we're going to switch, just like we did to find the converse, we're going to switch your conclusion and hypothesis. So we're going to pick up each one. And we get, if we do not have a fun practice, then coach is not happy. That is our contrapositive. Okay, and I missed putting that in there. All right, so another example. If I make my statement, if it is Friday, then we have a quiz. Okay. My inverse, I'm going to drop in a not. I'm negating the verb. If it is not Friday, then we do not have a quiz. Okay, I don't know if it's a true or false statement. Usually Fridays you guys are having some little exercises. All right. The contrapositive, we're going to just the statements, those little sections that come after if and then, switch places. So we do not have a quiz, then it is not Friday. Okay. Technically I should have the if there. If is missing, don't worry, it's not really count against you. Okay, so some more practice with these. So we were negating in the first one. What happens if we start with a negative? Okay, we're going to change it to a positive. So if it did not rain, then school was not canceled. That's our statement. If I'm going to do the inverse, I'm going to get rid of the not from each, the hypothesis and conclusion. And if it rained, then school was canceled. So that's like we're having rain with a hurricane, I guess. That's what I was thinking of. My contrapositive, school was canceled, comes first, and then it rained is going to come next. So they're just switching sides of the comma. And I see, did we get it done? Yes, so we're done with the slideshow. All right. I'm hoping this worked out well. You guys have to tell me how it went. All right. And we don't want, I'm just going to minimize this, and then we are going to